Welcome to Tech Startup Stories, hosted by Natalie Binns. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the B2B startup world.
Hi, I'm Natalie Binns, and after many years as a marketing leader in the B2B SaaS industry, I set up Hey Gabby to support startups and scale-ups with their go-to-market and growth needs. I work with so many great founders, and that's led me to want to hear their stories and share them with others. And that's why I set up this podcast. So let's get into this week's podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Tech Startup Stories. This week, I'm speaking with a founder and entrepreneur, Rina Galperin, and she's the CTO and co-founder of a company called PVML. Welcome to the show, Rina. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So I know that you've been in the sort of technical space for many years. How did you kind of get into being a female technical expert and individual?
I mean, my background in kind of the technical world started when I was very young. I just decided I have to understand how websites are built. And I went down the rabbit hole of kind of learning HTML and JavaScript and so on. And then I started my bachelor's in computer science, went on to do a master's. So I was always a part of this tech domain, but specifically with the startup life, I just always felt like having an ownership and the impact, I guess, on something end to end feels really natural to me. And it's something that I really want to achieve in my life. I feel like I'm doing best when I can contribute to something full on, let's say. And I feel like a deep tech startup was definitely part of my plan, I guess.
So I know that you worked for Microsoft for many years. That's obviously the opposite of startup life. So working in a big company like Microsoft, what kind of spurred you to want to go the other way to sort of, build a small company?
So I learned a lot at Microsoft, and I think working at such a large enterprise has its perks, obviously. But I think that's kind of where I felt the difference between where I was before, which is at university. I did my master's. I had my thesis where I had like full control over the subject that I was researching and the impact of the research and the direction that it will kind of continue to develop in later on. And then working at Microsoft, it's kind of the opposite because you're part of this insane machine. And even if you have ownership over some major feature or something like that, you don't see the full picture. Like in most cases, you are maybe a very crucial part even of a very technical subset of the product, but you don't see the full picture. You don't see the clients in most cases. You don't contribute to the product direction. And maybe, again, it's kind of my personal experience, but I guess being part of an enterprise, it's always kind of limited, the scope of where you can contribute and how big the picture that you're seeing. So I think working at Microsoft, although I loved my experience, I think it really pushed me towards either joining a small startup, which is what I planned to do, or start something on my own, which is what I eventually did.
So you left Microsoft, and then what was kind of the journey following leaving such a big sort of stable organization?
It was crazy. I think I went into it full on without having any backup plan, without having any assurance that something will work. I didn't even know what an angel investor was. For me, angel was, this pretty thing with wings. I had no idea what the startup ecosystem even is. So the only thing I knew is that if there is one thing I feel like I'm good at is learning. So I never think I know everything ahead of time, but I know I can learn. So I was confident that even if I fail along the way, I for me, I wouldn't see it as a failure because I think most people don't even try. So for me, it's an amazing experience and an amazing opportunity to even have the possibility to try something like that. I think it's a privilege, to be honest. So I went into it completely blind, having no idea how this works. And I definitely made a lot of mistakes and a lot of like, even looking at the pitch deck that we made like initially, it's funny. Like you see it and you think this is a very technical team, like Shahar and I, really technical people who have no idea how to sell anything and have no kind of business understanding of what they're doing. So I think one of the funniest things that I noticed, like looking back at my experiences, that as a technical person, you always see the technology as kind of the main thing you're selling. So even when you're pitching like the use cases or the things that you can solve, you always see it as, I can solve 10 things. So I'm selling you 10 things. But in practice, we know now that the superpower is to focus. You need to focus, you need to do one thing really well. And this was a very kind of tough lesson that I had to learn along the way. And I think if I could give the young Rina an advice when she first started, it's definitely focus on one thing that you can solve really well with your technology, and don't focus on the technology as much. Focus on the pain point you're solving for your client. So it was definitely kind of a funny journey to learn all these things from scratch without having any guidance or any background or anything from the startup life.
I think it's so interesting. I speak with commercial founders and technical founders, and you're like the opposite sides of the coin. You both face massive learning curves and challenges, but in the opposite way. I think it's really interesting that you kind of talk about those early days and, you know, looking back. And I think everybody is in that same mindset of, if you look back at some of the stuff you created in the beginning, it's kind of embarrassing, and you see it with a completely different lens. What was the approach that you and your founder went through to kind of come up with that first business idea? Was it something that one of you were kind of ruminating on? Was it something that you were brainstorming? Talk us through what that process was.
So it was really kind of the classic problem found solution. So when I was working at Microsoft, I was working as a software engineer, and I started noticing that even the smallest analytical tasks that I was given for the sake of product visibility were very challenging. So, for example, the product could ask me, can you please give me insights on how students are using the product? So I was working at the education team. So we were building a solution for virtualized classrooms. So the product wanted to understand, is the performance improving thanks to our product or not? Like the grading of the tests and so on. But even getting such insights like an average score in a test was something that I wasn't allowed to extract because of compliance and privacy reasons. And the first time it happened, I kind of didn't think of it. But then when it started happening over and over again, I started to think, how is it possible that an enterprise like Microsoft doesn't have a solution for product-driven insights that do not hinder privacy and security? And at the same time, Shahar was finalizing his PhD in differential privacy, which is this mathematical methodology that was designed to enable big data analytics and insights without hurting the privacy of the individuals in the data. But it's a very kind of less known field in computer science, so I never heard of it before. But when I started talking to him about it, I felt like it sounds like it could solve the problem that I was having. And upon further research, I realized that Microsoft was actually using differential privacy, but not across the board. So Microsoft was using differential privacy in very specific use cases with very kind of tailored algorithmics, and not something that is productized and that everybody can use. So even I didn't get a chance to enjoy it. And Google and Apple, by the way, are doing the exact same thing. So I think we both kind of realized that we have a chance here to create very kind of broad algorithms and productize them so that other companies can enjoy. Because if Microsoft is suffering from this, I'm sure that a bunch of other companies are suffering from this too. So we had this kind of realization that we have a chance to actually help a lot of companies that have the same problem.
And I think with the journey that you guys went on, of kind of coming up with those thoughts, from a technical perspective, and you've already kind of mentioned that, just trying to understand how to sell it, and all the other journeys were challenging. How were you kind of thinking about packaging this up, and who were you going to sell this to?
So we went through a journey here. So we first started with kind of our initial intuition, which was really just pure intuition. We had no idea. So we started with kind of the compliance teams, compliance and legal, because we felt like if this is a compliance requirement, then maybe that's kind of the place to start, and maybe they will be interested in using such a solution. But we very quickly realized that compliance and legal kind of, they give the guidelines that the other teams need to adhere to, but they won't buy a technical solution for the teams to use. So that was kind of the initial attempt we made. And then we started talking to additional stakeholders. So we started talking with the security teams, and we reached the CISOs. So that was another angle that we tried. We actually got a lot of companies very interested. So we went on to have kind of longer processes, and we got to meet very different stakeholders in those companies. So that was amazing for us because we had a chance to speak with a lot of different executives and stakeholders, and kind of understand what is interesting for them and what kind of control they have over something like that. So we could assess how good the match was to purchase PVML. So after understanding that legal and compliance is kind of not the right direction, and CISOs, although they are approvers of such a solution, they're not the ones that will actually have the need. So after a bunch of conversations with many potential clients, even before we wrote the first line of code, we started talking with a lot of potential clients, and we understood that the person probably who has the need and has the motivation and feels the pain, and also controls, kind of leads the teams that will eventually use the solution, is the CIO. The CIO sits at a very interesting intersection between the security, the governance, and also the transformation. So every data-driven initiative will probably go through him, but also the need to adhere to kind of compliance and security regulations will also be something that the CIO is aware of and needs to have under his control. So we understood that this is the person we need to target, but it was after kind of a lot of iterations with different potential clients and a lot of conversations. So we changed it along the way until we got to the person that we know is the right one.
Got it. And so when we look at today, what does the company look like today? What is your vision for how the business is going to continue on? And what have you kind of, what stage have you got to in terms of building out the company?
So we're now more than 20 people, and we're now founding our headquarters in the US. So
Wow.
In New York City, which is really exciting. The tech headquarters is here in Tel Aviv, and the business headquarters will be in New York City. I think it's a super impactful time for PVML because of that reason. We always find ourselves kind of traveling and flying to see clients, because at the end of the day, there is no replacement to this kind of human interaction. Even when you're selling something that is like a technical product, even if you're selling an application, I still think there is a lot of value in actually meeting the client face to face. So we find ourselves flying a lot. And I think having a headquarters at the main location where we meet people will have huge impact. So it's a really exciting time. And yeah, I can't wait to actually complete this process and have it way easier to meet the clients face to face. I think it will be amazing next step.
Fantastic. So let's talk about you personally as a founder. Did you always want to be a founder? Is this something that you kind of had the desire to do throughout, your journey at Microsoft? What's your kind of view on, your own personal journey becoming a founder?
So I think, I don't even know if it's like a common or not, but for me personally, I never thought of it. It's not like I dreamed of being an entrepreneur from a young age or something. I actually thought that working at a huge enterprise is amazing, and I still do. I think it has, it's way easier. Okay, it's way easier than being a founder. I think you need to be a little crazy to be a founder. And it's not like you're your own boss and you can work less or something. I think everybody says that if you're an entrepreneur, you're working way more, 24/7, at least at the beginning, I guess. I still haven't reached the time where it's not 24/7. So it's not something that I planned to do, but I think that my experience with my studies and combined with Microsoft, I think I realized that this is probably the right thing for me. I think I thrive when something feels like it's mine, and I feel the drive to I don't feel like I'm working. I don't feel like it's work. I feel like it's my baby, I guess, and I'm building something that is my own, and I just want to put everything I have into it. So it's a very different feeling, and I don't think that the other option is bad. I think work-life balance is critical, and I think people that treat work like work, I think it's the smart thing to do. But if you have this urge to do something of your own, then it's really fulfilling. And that's what I feel now. Like I enjoy the entire process. I enjoy the failures. I enjoy the tough times, because everybody says that a startup is like a roller coaster. So you need to kind of train yourself to be more emotionally stable along the way. So you don't get super excited when good things happen, because you know tomorrow you will probably kind of face tougher times. So I think it's mentally challenging and physically challenging, emotionally challenging, but if you manage to learn from it and adjust, you become a stronger person. So that's kind of my personal experience.
Interesting. And with your founder, obviously, lots of founders talk about, is it better to go it alone? Is it better to go with a co-founder or multiple co-founders? How did you guys decide to kind of enter into this journey together? Because obviously it's a huge commitment, or it may not feel like that at the beginning, but as you know, as you go through the journey, it becomes more and more important that you gel together and work as a solid partnership. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So I think for us it was very natural. We were kind of used to working together. We worked together at university as well. And I think our capabilities kind of complement each other. So for us, it felt very natural. I don't even think we had an official conversation on we're going to do this together and that's what it means. It was kind of very natural. So maybe also because of the kind of our domain expertise that also complement each other. My background is more kind of on the AI side, and his is more on the data protection side. So I think the combination just felt like a really good match. And again, because we're used to working together, it was very kind of natural for us.
What was your first hire, and why was that so important?
Wow. I actually knew who my first hire is gonna be. I mean, obviously, because we're a deep tech company, we knew the first hires are gonna have to be engineers and really good ones. And I knew exactly who I want because I feel like I had the opportunity to study with the smartest people I know and the most talented engineers I know. So I knew I have a few friends that I wanna bring on to this journey with me. And luckily, they agreed right away and they loved the idea and they trusted me to join, which I feel really grateful for. So I had kind of an idea in mind of the people that I want. And as soon as we completed our seed round and we had money to actually pay them, they left their jobs and they joined PVML, which I think also says a lot about kind of the importance of trust with the initial people that you bring on. You need believers. You need people that will believe in what you're building and will see the vision and will trust you as well and will also trust themselves. You need to be like a really confident person to say, I'm willing to be the first engineer in a startup, because you know the burden is on you to do the right decisions and to build a good product. So yeah.
Brilliant. And how long did you spend building the product before you were ready to commercially ship it?
So we spent 2 years building the product. We had a really deep tech and a lot of advanced algorithms that we had to complete before we could ship the product. So it took us some time, but it's not like we just built it in a vacuum and didn't talk to clients. We obviously made sure as a priority to continue talking with potential clients, and we even closed some deals before we started shipping the product. But yeah, it took us some time to kind of write all the algorithms, and I'm not sure that we need kind of, if you want to get into it, let me know, Natalie, but the differential privacy part of the solution is something that you need to create an algorithm, and you also need to have a mathematical proof to support it. So it's something that is kind of very complex and takes a lot of time. So it's a lot of research and engineering and so on. So yeah.
Great. Well, what's been the most surprising part of this journey for you?
Wow, that's a good question. I think it's, for me personally, is how important the people that you surround yourself with are. I think when you first go into it, you don't even see the long term where you have a bunch of people in your company, each in charge of a different domain. You have investors. You don't think of it because you're always focused on the next closest goal. So when it was just the two of us raising the seed round, we were only thinking about completing the fundraising and getting the money from the best investor we can. But we were never thinking about kind of the human dynamics of things. And I very quickly realized that people are the most important thing. And I know it sounds like a cliche, I understand, but it's really true. It's really true. And if you surround yourself with people who either don't fully trust you or don't really trust the direction of the company or don't share the vision, you will probably build a not optimal product. I don't want to say a bad product because it's not necessarily true. You can still have professional people that don't see things the same way you do. But I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who are very professional, but also very communicative. So I always like to say, it's fine, I say it in every interview. I always like to say that we like to kind of fight at the office. So we like to fight about things because we like to hear the opinions of people. So it's not like the person who is in charge is the one that sets the rules or decides what we're going to do. It's the person who has the better idea and has the right thought process and can actually articulate what is the best decision. So we like to talk about things, which obviously means we also fight and disagree and so on. But the idea for me was to surround myself with people I can trust. And I think they have very good experience in different things. So I can actually get better ideas. It's not just my ideas. I think my experience is obviously very limited. And the same for every individual person. But when you have many people with experience from different places and different thought processes, and you can actually reach better decisions, which I think was something that really surprised me, because again, it's not something that you think about beforehand, but I think it's critical. It's actually the most important thing to build a good company, in my opinion.
So, as we know, it's not always an easy ride being a founder. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. What has been the most difficult thing that you've faced on this journey so far?
So, I think we talked about work-life balance before. And I personally had a point in time during the startup experience where I had like a personal health issue, and I suddenly had no choice but to pause. And I realized it was the first time I actually paused, and that maybe the fact that I didn't before is why I kind of got out of balance health-wise. Like the ups and downs of a startup, when you think about the business context, it's really obvious and everybody experiences that, but you don't take into account that life also happens, and that nothing else stops while you're working on your startup and grinding. And I actually learned to not stop, but to pay more attention to kind of my needs, and maybe have more of the mental mindset to go through it in a way that won't hurt myself. But yeah, I think it was kind of a hard lesson on the importance of pausing and paying attention to yourself, even if you're grinding and you're doing the 24/7 and you have this first priority of the startup in mind. You still need to remember that you're human and you're not superhuman. So yeah, I guess that was a tough lesson for me. But yeah, I learned a lot from it. And yeah, if I could give an advice to a new founder, it was definitely to remember that you're human and you need to treat yourself as one.
Absolutely. I think it was what my trainer said to me once, that you've got three things. You've got your professional career, whether that's as a founder or as an employee. You've got your personal relationships, whether that's family or romantic relationships, and then your physical health. And often people focus on two. Very rare can they kind of hold all three together. And I think when you're a founder, you're juggling so many different things. You're so excited and passionate about what you're doing. And so, yeah, it's very easy to forget, I'll work out later, I'll sleep more later, I'll eat healthier later, and all the things, or even just take some time. But I think when every founder goes through some kind of aha moment, whether it's their physical health or mental health or whatever it is, where it stops them in their tracks. And what I hear often is that they're so much better as a leader, as a founder, when they've created better balance in their life, and been able to kind of see their journey as an entrepreneur with a little bit more of a balanced view of all the other things that need to be managed in their lives. Well, I'm glad you're healthy now, and I'm glad that you've kind of come over that challenge. We would love to continue watching your journey over time, and you've got so many exciting things coming. You mentioned earlier that you spent 2 years building the product. You've been pushing it out commercially, and exciting to be building your commercial headquarters in New York City this year. What other things do you think are going to be in store for you guys this year?
So I think now we're really focused on kind of the highly regulated industries. So defense and fintech and mobility, and we're seeing a lot of traction with companies from those domains. So I think continuing to kind of conquer these industries will be our focus. So yeah, expect to see a lot of new clients from these domains join and start using PVML and connecting their data to agents and finally kind of adopting GenAI without all the security risks. So that's what I'm excited to see. There isn't a better feeling than actually seeing a client uses your solution to solve something that was painful to him for a long time, especially with all the hyper GenAI. I think being the security component that enables it in a way that doesn't hinder privacy and security is something that feels really fulfilling for me as a tech founder. So yeah, that's what I'm most excited about.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast this week. We will be following your journey and seeing what happens over the next year. And we'd love to have you back on the show next year.
Would love to. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Tech Startup Stories. Have a story you'd like us to share or a topic you'd want to cover? Reach out and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.